All right, hi everybody. My name's John. I'm just out here from California, so if I fall asleep in the middle of a sentence, I apologize now. I know we're running kind of late, so I'm going to keep it super short. So I work for Microsoft. Tonight I'm going to be showing you some things that are fun, free, open source that you can use. They're free, so I get a 10% commission, so please download them. So I'm going to start with Visual Studio Code. Who here's you? What are you guys using to edit? For web dev, use like Sublime, Atom. Who here's use Vim? Oh, Vim. There's always at least one, right? Is anyone using Visual Studio Code? Check it. Okay, cool. So it's free, like I said. So I don't care, But I've been using it lately, and it's pretty. I'm enjoying it. So before that, I was using Atom with a lot of extensions. I'm finding that code is pretty quick, and it's grown pretty fast. So they just hit 1.0 release. I want to show you a few things that it does. So it has main support for Node, for front-end web dev, and for C# they've just added. So if you look in here at runtimes, there's like a little walkthrough on configuring Node.js and some of the things that it'll set up for you. Under languages, there's some stuff like it gives you things like IntelliSense. So if you mistype something, it'll tell you got it wrong. It also has some cool stuff just in like CSS and snippets where it'll go through and it'll explain like if you type in a color, it'll auto-complete the color for you and stuff. So it's kind of neat. So let me show you what it's like. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new Express app. And I forget what I called it, Helsinki, I believe. So, good. Why is it not doing that? I'm not going to spend too much time in here anyhow, so we have to download the internet. There we go. Is that zoomed enough? All right, this should come up in a second. If I get bored, I've already got one prepared that I might skip over to. All right, that's enough for me. Okay, so I've added code to my path, so it's popping up here. So this is what it looks like. And one thing that's kind of cool with this is I can go in and it's got IntelliSense. So that means if I type something like app, right? So it's going to autocomplete for me, and it'll tell me only stuff that's in scope. One thing that's a little different for VS Code, the way it does IntelliSense, is it's actually based on more deeper understanding. So compared to something like Sublime, where it's doing more text-based autocomplete, meaning if you're typing something that's not in scope, it won't complete it for you, right? One other thing that's kind of nice is it's got support for debugging. So if I do like set a breakpoint here and go in and hit debug, so it's going to run through, and then it shows me stuff like, my locals and what's actually going on. So the idea, what they say on the website is, print debugging is a thing of the past, right? So you don't have to go through and do that. So that's VS Code. It's a quick install. If you go to code.visualstudio.com, and it's like under a minute. It'll install for you. So it detects your operating system and downloads it. So that's that. Has anyone here used ASP.NET ever in the past? All right, I'm sorry. No, it's had, I love ASP.NET. I've used it over the years. It's had some good and bad parts to it. If you use it, especially with web forms, yeah, I'm sorry. So but it has gotten pretty. We've been doing a lot with it lately. So, what they've been doing with ASP.NET 5 is, first of all, changing the name a bit. So it's gone through some things. It's now actually going to be called ASP.NET Core. It's cross-platform and open source. So it's a full web stack from Microsoft, open source from the Vue library, MVC, all the way down to the compiler and the HTTP server. One cool thing that, it took a while to convince the higher up people at Microsoft, of course, to open source our web stack. One thing that we told them was, hey, if we open source it, we might get community contributions. So we actually did. We got this guy, Ben. He doesn't work for Microsoft, but he's been cranking away. So he did all this cool stuff, and they actually got the performance of the server up to, he got 1.15 million requests per second. So this is using the Tech Empower benchmarks. So if we look at, where we started with, we're at 57,000 requests per second. Comparing that to Node.js was 106,000. So we had a ways to go, right? So that was kind of our benchmark where we were starting. Using plain text with pipelining, we're now seeing we are getting up to almost 1 million requests per second on Linux and a little bit over 1 million requests per second on, I forgot to zoom there, on Windows. So that's kind of cool. We still have a ways to go because we really actually do want to compete with like Netty. And Netty, if you look at, is getting to 2.8 million requests per second. So, but as far as why you would maybe care about ASP.NET, it's kind of this middle ground between something like Node, where you can crank stuff out. You're good with JavaScript, or you wouldn't be here tonight. So you could do the majority of your work in Node. If you want a fast server for a specific thing, for instance, the thing Ben, that guy that was doing that contribution stuff. They've got a game server, and so he's doing 35,000 requests per second for a real-time action game, and that is all running over ASP.NET. And the idea is, if you compare that to something like Netty code, yeah, you can get higher performance, but it's more complex, right? So if you look at an ASP.NET app, I'll just show you real quick. So this is an ASP.NET app, and if we look at, this is, what's required to do a hello world, right? So it really is kind of simplified down. It's a lot more convention-based. It works well with things like NPM packages, front-end managers, and stuff like that. Move from XML-based configuration to JSON-based. So, actually kind of stuff that you would want to use in the real world. So that's ASP.NET. If you want to learn more about ASP.NET, you can go to get.asp.net. So that is. And it'll show you how to, I'm on a Mac, so it detects that and says, here's the installer for it. So it's not released yet. We're in release candidate stage. We're expecting this summer that they'll actually hit their first release. But the last thing I wanted to show you, and then I will stop talking, is Azure App Service. So Azure App Service is this thing where, it does all the way up to, you can compare it to Google Cloud Platform, AWS, et cetera. So it's, cloud hosting. One thing that you may want to use it for is you can, without signing up, without getting any kind of account, let's say you want to share a web app with somebody else. Like say you've got something you're working on, you want to share it with a client or QA department or something, right? So I can go into tryappservice.azure.com, and then I go down here, click Next, create, and oops, I did not want to do that. Okay. So I could create an empty site, or for instance, in this case, I could create a Java app. I'm going to create an Express.js app, and then now I've got to sign in with something. I think I've signed in using Facebook before. So what it's doing here is it's like they don't want people to robo-create 10 million websites, right? But so it's associated with some sort of account. But I didn't have to put in a credit card or anything like that. So it spins away for a second, and it's provisioning a site. Okay, so I don't, when it finishes, the site will be live for 1 hour. I can click a link to extend it for 24 hours, but after that it just goes away. So this is not free hosting forever. This is, this is a quick way to try it out. But when I shared it with some people on my team who are like Chris Heilman, who was recently come over from Mozilla, does a lot of node dev and stuff. And he was like, wow, this is perfect. This is exactly the kind of thing I want to do to spin something up quickly. So here I can go in and I could edit it online. This editor, by the way, that's going to spin up here is actually what we use to build Visual Studio Code. So we first built it as a web-based dev thing, and then we're like, huh, interesting. We could put it in, Electron shell, and there you go. So if I go in and create, like, say, here's a view. So, right. Woo, okay. And then I can go and browse the site. So it's a live site. I've got a live editor. And I can also, back here, I could also git clone it, work with it, and then publish. So all that kind of basic stuff. So the three things I showed you, there's Visual Studio Code. That's code.visualstudio.com. There is ASP.NET 5 at get.asp.net. And the last thing is, if I can find it, there it is, TryApp Service. So tryappservice.azure.com. So, all right, thanks a bunch.
Thanks, John.